And with that, we're live. It is the Astro Weather. The day is the 1st of March. By the way, did you know that March is National Women's Month? I bet you didn't know that. So we go from Black History Month to National Women's Month, International Women's Month. So if you're a woman, this is your month. So you get 1 month out of the year to really strut your stuff as a woman. No, that's not true, but they've allotted that. How long is that going to last until that's being really National Women's Month? What's a woman? Okay, I'm being obstreperous. Welcome to the Astro Weather. We're going to get it off on a good foot here. It's amazing. February, which of course part of which was moving into Aquarius, aqua season, went by pretty fast, and here we are. We're already at March, and by the time we get there, 3/4 of the Gregorian year will be a quarter. I'm sorry, third. Is that right? No, well, quarter. My bad. Quarter of the Gregorian year will be over, and the Bull Express with time is on its way. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at the Astro Weather, shall we? Let me make my screen a little smaller so I'm not distracted by my bedhead today. Okay, so here we go. Saturn creeping. What is it? March 25th. No, March 8th. March 8th, Saturn into Pisces. I'm already feeling it. Can you tell? I'm spending time in a hospital with my Piscean mother. Yes, it is upon us. So here we go. The last few degrees of Mercury in Aquarius. You know, we get the clarity, the eagle's view, looking down at the rest of the physical domain. Those last few degrees of Aquarius were, we're just dealing with the final moments of vision and sight before it drops down into the depths of the water, and our ability to think and communicate gets submerged in a much more subjective world, much more subjective world. And in a lot of ways, a creative and imaginal and even emotional world. So the relative clarity of Aqua Mercury is will be dissipating. So that'll be gone in 3 days, right? And then what's going to happen? Well, now we still have this Mercury Saturn conjunction, but unlike yesterday where it was at 6 degrees and somewhat manageable, today we see the conjunction getting closer and closer. So that means that what you think and how you communicate and what you articulate is getting to be more and more of an ironclad agreement, right? And then when we get into this kind of fixed anaretic degree, what you agree to has long-term and long-lasting consequences. So keep that in mind. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Like for me, I'm agreeing to liberate my mother from California. I'm going to need this fixed energy. Let me tell you, okay? I'm going to need that fixed energy and the fixed energy is actually really good. If you need to really, put your shoulder to the wheel, as they say, there's nothing better than fixed energy to do that. So, and even here, I mean, it's not great if you want to make some kind of deeper change or put a pattern into motion that's going to have more of a long-lasting impact. It's better to be at the early degrees of a sign, only because you're getting the fruit of the energy. But here at the end, it's still okay. It's almost like you're patching things together, right? Now, because of the degree of the moon, at least in the morning, we're still getting that trine. We're still getting that Mercury Saturn trine with the moon. The moon has shifted. It's in Cancer. So it's a very different moon than it was yesterday when we were dealing with the final degrees in Gemini. Things happening, moving very, very quickly. So it's an odd mix of like sentimentality and emotion and nurturing and care, blending with this highly objective, almost paralytically, scientifically, analytically Mercury Saturn conjunction. It's a really interesting blend, and it allows us, at least at the beginning of the day, to be in our emotional body, but at the same time not be overwhelmed by it. This is a really, really interesting trine. And then we also have Moon conjunct Pallas, which is fantastic in terms of intuition and pattern recognition. So this is one of those days, excuse me, this is one of those days where if you have an instinct, if you really feel like you're seeing something, experiencing something, and it's more than once, right? You said, where have I seen this before? Where have I known this before, right? This is where you're going to flesh it out. And then again, the ability to communicate, to act with absolute clarity and almost feeling as if the door is closing. That's the other part here with Mercury and Saturn at these degrees, like the door is closing. So if you are being asked to act, don't sleep on it, right? Just move on it. You got to move. It's very important. Now, we do have this Venus moon square going on. So sometimes when we put things into motion, we're not always going to please other people, right? Because Venus and Aries, look at all the Aries here. We have Vesta, and Venus, and Jupiter, and Chiron. There's Eris, there's Juno. Look at all that Aries. There's so much immediacy in the air. It's like it's all about now, right? And here with the square with Moon and Venus, other people may not be ready for the now. That's just how this works, right? Other people might not be ready for it, especially early in the day. Now, even a bit later, right? So tomorrow we're going to have that Mercury. So the moon begins to separate out a little bit, and we won't have the same kind of trine going on here. But we will have the sun-moon trine throughout the day, right? Nice sun-moon trine. So the idea with the sun-moon trine is that, you know, the sun is our being, right? So when we think of the sun in terms of the chart, what we're looking at, and the theoretical rest of the world, right? So we are now immersed in Pisces, not just any Pisces, we're second decan Pisces, which happened pretty quickly. And what decan is that? It is the Cancerian decan below. And here we have the moon in Cancer trying the sun. So again, this is one of those days where if you can literally feel your way through the day, if you can feel your way through the day, understand your instincts, your intuition, you know, things that are coming up in terms of patterns to recognize, and you're able to speak to them, you're able to theoretically act on them, right? This is a good day for that. You just may piss some people off along the way with this Moon-Venus square. It's an interesting blend of objectivity, subjectivity, and then with Aries, there's, you know, Aries is interesting because it is a really, I think it's a subjective sign, but it's not subjective in the same way that Pisces is. You know, Pisces is subjective in the sense that everything is immersed in this deeper ocean of consciousness, whereas Aries is subjective only because it is immersed in the self. Right? So we're dealing with interests of the self as it relates to other people, but we're also dealing with self-interest as it relates to emotions. And sometimes these two are mutually exclusive. And today may be one of those days, right? Maybe one of those days. So we still have Mars here. Again, Mars has been in Gemini for almost forever, but it's picking up some speed. And now Mars is finally in the third decan, which puts it in the Aquarian decan. And that helps when it comes to moving and making decisions, right? Because when we get into the Aquarian decan, we're less attached to the things that we're acting on. So there's Mars, and still kind of a wide trine there with Mercury and Mercury separating. So today it's just going to eventually, well, today and tomorrow, it'll really start to move away from Mars. We do have some tension with Mars, and that's with the sun, and we're going to see that over the course of the next week. And that Sun-Mars square is conflict oriented, right? And this is where the subjectivity, the deep subjectivity of Pisces can get into trouble here. And watch out for taking things personally. That's one of the things that I would put right at the top of the list. Do not take things personally, because Mars in Gemini is sharp. It is a double-edged sword. So just when you think that your position is either compromised or you're the one that is having to bear the brunt of other people's actions, just step back if you can. You have that objective energy here. Step back, take a look at the other person, and rest assured that that person is probably going to have to deal with that in their own way in the not so distant future. Now, Mars Sun squares can be powerful, right? It's like being a fighter. You know, with a Mars Sun square, if you have it in your chart, that's an aspect where you're predisposed towards fighting and moving through conflict. So if you have a Mars Sun square in your chart, hey, today's a good day for you because you're in your own territory here. Like, that's how it works. But if you don't have it in your chart, well, this is one of those days where, you know, conflict is in the air. And what are you willing to fight for if you need to? And that's the other part, right? There's an asterisk there. What are you willing to fight for if you need to? Just watch out. Just watch out with that Sun-Mars energy. And especially in Pisces, because again, in the second decan, Cancer, it's very personal decan. How dare you? How dare you? To quote Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg, Sun sextile Uranus. Go to a different place for lunch today. Break up the monotony a little bit. That's what Sun Uranus sextiles are really good for. Just break up the monotony. Do something different. You know, if you have to drive to work, take a different route to work, right? Even though it may not be the quickest route, take a different route to work. Because today's one of those days that also favors a little bit of innovation. And we're going to be in that really tight sextile here for, the next 13 days, you know, even as we get into it closer, that's 5 days out, and then separate, well, 10 days, we'll call it 10 days with the separation. So innovation is at the top of the list with the Sun Uranus sextile. A lot of Aries. So today, let's just kind of round it up, all right? Objectivity, the ivory tower approach, looking down on everything, but not being so disassociative that the emotional body and the instinctual body is left out of the discussion. It is not, especially early in the day. A little bit later in the day, we might have a bit of a break with this. So there's that, and then we have the moon, sun, trine, water sign, you know, finding the flow, going with the flow. Watch out for taking things personally. Lots of objectivity, deep personal subjectivity. But if you have to fight through the day, if you have to deal with conflict, today is one of those days where you can do it, right? You can definitely do it. And then all of this self-interest with all this Aries. And then making decisions, emotionally based decisions that people that you have connections with and relate to aren't always going to sign off on or co-sign. Watch out for a little self-indulgence with that Jupiter moon square. Skip the second donut this morning if that's on your menu, because you'll get that with that Jupiter moon square. You know, I'll just have another one. I'm having such a hard time. Give me that third donut. All right, there's your Astro Weather. let's talk start of the day. Very unusual, I guess. What's unusual today? I mean, we had Richard Ramirez as a co-star yesterday. How unusual is that? So today's start of the day is Kesha. It's funny people say, wow, you never have women as your start of the day. When there's an interesting woman, she's on the roster. Oh, and by the way, since it's International Women's Month, I'll try to feature as many women as possible. So I actually saw Kesha live one time. I have to say, I was not a Kesha fan. I was with a guy that I used to work with, and he was involved in promoting Kesha. He was part of her promotion team. So we got concerts and we saw the show. I have to say, she was actually pretty talented. She was pretty talented. She could sing, she could dance. Her band was pretty tight. It was like not a bad show, actually, although not my cup of tea. So why did I choose her? Well, that's a good question. I chose her because of this right down here. True node, Aries, right? Of course, there's Eris. And what do we think of with Aries? We think of the head. We think of the head. And also, what do we have in the head? We have the teeth, right? The teeth. And apparently, Kesha got a bunch of teeth sent to her by her fans. And there they are right there. So she's made a bra out of her fans' teeth, a headdress out of her fans' teeth. So there you go. There's the head right there, right? There's the head, Aries. And there's the teeth, and there's the teeth. And I believe this was an Instagram picture. And she's got warrior hitting the high note of the true node right there in Aries. That's how you live your nodes, boys and girls, right? Right there in Aries. Although maybe you have a different expression of the true node in Aries. Maybe you're not wearing your beloved fan's teeth around your third eye. That's understandable. What's interesting about her chart are the conjunctions. You know, she's got that Moon Jupiter conjunction in Pisces, in the 29th degree of Pisces with Jupiter there. And Kesha, if I'm not mistaken, was one of these young women who was brought up and raised to be a Christian music star. And just like, what's her name, Katy Perry, whose idol was Amy Grant. They're kind of similar in some ways. And I think they're kind of born around the same time. So you can see the Christian influence of the family here with the Moon Jupiter conjunction. But she also talks about things like handlers. Like she's got some pretty interesting reveals when it comes to her life. And you can even see the potential for the handling, at least in my breakdown of her chart. The Sagittarius rising, I think it's really hard to handle somebody that's Sag rising. I'm just being honest, right? It's hard because Sagittarius rising wants to be free and expand and, you know, see what's over the next mountain, and generally positive in terms of self-expression. Saturn kind of brings that down a little bit in the first house, especially in Sagittarius. Now, it's not on the ascendant, which brings even more Saturn into the chart, but it's in the first house nonetheless. And she's got that Saturn-Uranus conjunction, which is kind of interesting because when I saw her live, there was something about her show that was kind of like punky and arty. She wasn't your typical cookie cutter MK Ultra Beta kitten. She actually had some talent. And so when we have Saturn and Uranus in this conjunction, you know, Uranus tends to be the avant-garde and doing something different. And Saturn tends to be more mainstream. And so here we have Ceres as the bridge, almost not quite at the midpoint, but conjunct Uranus. So she's nurturing the more radical Uranian expression of who she is, but with Saturn in the first house, I mean, you got to have some self-discipline with Saturn there, even in Sagittarius, right? So Saturn's the mainstream, Uranus is the avant-garde. I think, if I'm not mistaken, she sued her manager, right? So, you know, the manager or the handler would be Saturn in first, and then the moon Jupiter conjunction, maybe taking advantage of her and her efforts, right? Squaring off. Very interesting chart. She has Mercury in Pisces, retrograde in the third house. One can make a case, I suppose, if you wanted to use the third house as a partition. Again, looking at this whole idea of being a traumatized, split victim personality. I think we could make a case for that if we wanted to right here, especially with the retrograde. And then she's stubborn as hell. Mars and Taurus, the highest planet in her chart, at the apex, opposing Pluto. And that Pluto is pretty close to the ingress of the 12th house. This is somebody who's very, very stubborn, extremely stubborn. And you can see, I think, where she probably would struggle in some ways with a split personality, right? Chiron in Gemini over in the 7th house. We see it opposing Saturn and then coming in and squaring her son Mercury. This is, I would say this is somebody who's been hacked. This is somebody who's been hacked. And I think the hack is right there in that T-square. I don't know what she's up to these days, but she was rolling there for a while. And the thing, again, that really struck me was that true node in Aries and all those teeths around her third eye. Warrior, Kesha. And that's your star of the day. Have a great, great day, the 1st of March. We're looking at your Tuesday. All right, I'll be back over on 15 Minutes of Flame. People say, well, Robert, what is that? I'll show you what that is. That's the show that I do at 9:11 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm there for an hour and 40 minutes. And if you show up, my hair will be different. I guarantee that you'll be able to see a different version of the style. So that's 9:11 to 10:41 a.m. Come on over. Chattari is awesome. And we talk about the news of the day and then some. So I hope you can join us over there. If you're interested in setting up a reading or a session with me, all that information will be in the show notes. And last but not least, I have a shout out to our sponsor, which is True Hemp Science. And that's my buddy Chris in Austin, who has some of the best CBD products that I've encountered. And if you are interested, go to truehempscience.com, check out their wares. When you check out, type in 15MINS. It's 15MINS, and you will get free product when you spend $100 or more, $150 or more, and you get free shipping. That's truehempscience.com. Check it out. Good stuff, good people, and good day. We'll see you here tomorrow for the Astro Weather over on 15 Minutes for the next portion of today's media share. Bye for now.